Hello.
And welcome
Yes.
to this episode of
Table talk.
my computer's making noise of Table Talk. Table
It's,
Talk.
it's still. Is it still making noise?
It is.
What's
There we go.
we're
Noise is
already
gone
having
from my.
technical difficulties.
Sorry about
right
that.
Now.
Here we are at Table Talk, and it's
Yes.
we're missing Maya, and it just makes it all seem strange.
Yeah, it's all the setup's all weird now because
It
I'm
is.
not at the other end of the
Yeah,
table.
yeah. Usually we're trying to eventually scoot you off, so you just like fall off the table. That's the.
Dear God, you have to look at me.
Yeah,
Like,
we gotta like
straight in
turn
my
our way
eyes.
ahead around. Oh, what are you doing over there? All right, welcome to this episode of Table Talk with Travelin Young minus Maya. Travelin two Youngs.
I mean, it was still traveling.
Hey, Maya's talking there. She said
What?
hi.
Is
She's not
she
here.
on?
She
Oh.
must be on a
What?
train or something. I don't know.
Who knows where she is?
All right, here we are. And this episode is going to be a little bit low key because I'll have to say I've been like traveling.
We've all been traveling. Like I've been traveling crazy, and
Yeah.
you've been traveling.
Yeah, so I was gone. Like you and I went on an anniversary thing. We'll talk about later.
Yes.
And then we came back, and then I immediately went to Belgium and Netherlands for work.
Yep.
And then I came back from that,
Living
and
it
then the next day I went with Maya to Norway,
Yeah.
and I got back last night.
We haven't really put a lot. I mean, we talked on WhatsApp and stuff about, oh, this is maybe what we'll talk about. So
Yeah, so it was tough to. But here we are.
Exactly. Family.
What we want to talk about is, for the first portion of this, is the American dream. I think this is an interesting topic that is often people ask about what we think
no,
about the concept of an American dream, and there's always these people that say stuff about Americans go to Denmark to get the American dream. I don't know. We'll see. So first, I'm gonna say what Wikipedia's definition of the American dream is. The term American dream was first coined by James Truslow Adams in 1931, saying that life should be better and richer and fuller for everybody, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement, regardless of social class or circumstances of birth. So that's kind of like that's the first time the term American dream
okay,
was used. But also, according to Wikipedia, proponents of the American dream often claim that it originated from the U.S. Declaration of Independence, which states that all men are created equal and the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, saying that that is like encompassing of what the American dream is meant to be. And so another thing, I'm just reading
Yeah.
a few things that we will then discuss.
Yeah.
Just this is like I'm setting the bait because we
I
have
guess
not,
I have my stereotypical
Sure.
thought of what the American dream
and
is.
we have not talked about this.
No, we haven't
at all yet.
This is raw.
This is raw between us. Belief in the American dream is often inversely associated with rates of national disillusionment. Evidence indicates that upward economic mobility has declined and income inequality has risen in the United States of America in recent decades. In 2020, a poll found that only 54% of U.S. adults thought the American dream was attainable for them. 28% believed it was unattainable for them personally,
Yeah.
while 9% rejected the idea of it entirely. Younger generations were also less likely to believe in the American dream than their own counterparts.
Yep.
Now I'm going to go to the Oxford Dictionary
Oh my God.
definition of this. I did a little bit of research, and by that I mean I Googled and cut and pasted into a Google Doc
To a document.
so I can read it. The ideal by which equality of opportunity is available to any American, allowing the highest aspirations and goals to be achieved. And then one last definition from Britannica is the American dream, a happy way of living that is thought by many Americans as something that can be achieved by anyone in the U.S., especially by working hard and becoming successful. With good jobs, a nice house, 2 children, and plenty of money, they believe they were living the American dream. And that's in like italics.
Yeah.
So those are all the definitions that I could find like in a quick search, which I think is like would encompass the I guess you could call like the I don't know, there's like the written definition.
Yeah.
Like ignoring society and reality, that's like the written. So,
I think for me, I have the very like post World War II 1950s American dream where it's like, you have the wife stays at home and it's like you're living on one income, but you got 2 kids and a house and a dog and you're like 35. That's the
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it is, I think part of what I think, my definition, I guess, part of what I think the American dream is like, and this is encompassed a little bit in these definitions, is the desire to like improve each generation.
Yeah, do better than your parents.
Yeah, I always felt like, I go back a few generations, my grandparents worked really hard. They didn't have a ton, but they sacrificed so that my parents could go to school. And that was like the first generation of people to go to university.
Yeah.
And then they did well. And then I feel like it's my responsibility to build upon that. But I also think there's something in here about, in reality, everybody's circumstance is different economically, where they grow up, the skin color, all these things that affect what real opportunity is.
Yeah.
Gives different definitions to everybody of what the American dream is, and experiences on if it's actually possible or not.
Well, and I was reading today, because I was also trying to read it. You always have these facts, so then I feel very intimidated because you always come with like the well-researched. In my ADHD brain, I can like hold on to two things. But I was reading, and it said in the U.S., we have the highest level of income inequality since right before the Great Depression, which that is scary because seeing like how things are going in the U.S., like they said that if you had a town of 1,000 people, there would be one person who had the same amount of money as the 999 rest of the people in the town. That's what the income equality is like right now in the U.S.
Yeah, I know that.
Which means that that the social mobility has decreased by like 77%.
Yeah, I mean the gap is just widening, and an individual's ability to be mobile economically is definitely declining. Yeah, and if you're in that lucky group, which we happen to be in,
I think we're had some privileged.
Opportunity and stuff to we capitalize on that. But I mean, it's definitely difficult for a lot of people. Somebody asked, by the way, and this is part of this is engage, ask questions. I like the discussion around this. Somebody said,
I'm sorry if we don't look at the camera. We're still kind of learning like where to
working on it. We've at least got down to one computer, but I need one to make sure that the video is working right and looks good.
Is having more? Is the concept of having more than the person next to you part of the American dream?
I don't think so.
I feel like it is. I mean, there is that sense of keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah,
so
but
maybe not so much having more.
I don't think it's having more than somebody, but having as much as somebody.
Yes.
And that's two different things. Because
or
being more
appearing that you have as much as somebody in a class above you.
But that's different. Not saying that's great, but that's different than trying to be better than somebody else. It's more trying to catch up to what you think the model of what the American dream or what somebody should have, and you want to get there.
Yeah.
Not I want to be better than other people and have more than them. It's that I want to make sure I have as much as these people that I think are where I need to be. And that's what I need to get to.
I think it's this idea of you manifest where you want to be. There's this idea of like, you manifest the social class that you want to be in the U.S. So there is a lot of pressure to, I think, well, I didn't feel it because I just didn't care. But I think there are a lot of people who do feel a lot of pressure to show that they're a class up or, show that they have social stature. And they do that through, material things. Like the easiest way to show that is your house and your car and how you dress your kids. And I mean, we knew one couple like earlier on in our marriage that they were like house poor, like they had this it was that couple that had the townhouse and,
but here's the thing though. He worked at Best Buy and he got me
to get really good deals.
Best Buy discounts. It was like he had a second job at Best Buy just so he could get discounts to buy home theater stuff. So I did like that part.
That's
true. I mean, I think for sure everybody's different and motivated for different things. I mean, I don't think I ever wanted anything specifically because somebody else had it, but I definitely wanted and liked things. Yeah. But I think I evolved also over time in realizing that so this is the other thing that I think about the American dream now is I think part of it is being able to me, it's being able to define your own path
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
being in a situation where a path is defined for you. And if you have the autonomy and the flexibility and the privilege to be able to define your own path, because
Yeah.
not everybody can do that. Having that is part of it for me. Not saying I have to do the exact thing, that there's no prescribed way that you have to be, like, you know, having 3 kids or 2 kids
Yeah,
and this kind of,
exactly.
and at
That
first
kind of
when,
nuclear family
yeah,
that
when we
was-
first got married, it's like we came and we bought a house.
We did the nuclear
we had
family.
a kid, and we're doing that. And then I had a job for 10 years. It was like 9 to 5 every day, same job for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it just like after traveling and experiencing other parts of the world, we're like, this just
Like,
to me it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get more out of life instead of just like having every week blur into the same week and not being able to distinguish year from year. And that's what kind of led us eventually to move here. And that, to me, having that possibility was also realizing part of the American dream is we are in a situation that we could do that and have that flexibility. So
Yeah.
I think some of these are interesting. People
Yep.
said, do you feel like you've lost something uniquely American inside yourselves after living in Denmark for years? I don't think so, because I think of myself more as a human in the world and not necessarily uniquely American. I would guess that there are people that hear me talk and say, you're definitely still American.
Yeah, you're definitely American.
It was funny today. I was on a work call and my boss said, well, Josh, he was on these meetings with people in the U.S. and it's super helpful actually having an American citizen on some of these calls versus, European that
Yeah,
maybe can't
yeah.
necessarily completely relate to cultural things that I can just kind of do. So obviously that comes out. It's beneficial at work at times.
Yeah. I mean, I think I still retain that. But I don't know. I don't feel like I've changed too much. I always felt like we kind of went against the grain to begin with when we were in the U.S. You talked about how we kind of at some point both decided to eschew this idea of the nuclear family, and we, started putting all of our money basically into traveling, and that's what we did, and that's what we focused on. And I felt like that was already kind of bucking the trend of what a lot of people expected us to do. I actually got a lot of friction about that because people were like, oh, let's go out to eat. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And I was always like, no, we're saving to go wherever, But so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that for us was part of it. And yeah, somebody earlier in this comment said something about, not everybody's equal. And obviously I agree.
Yeah,
that, I mean, I think there's certain elements of equality that exists, basic fundamentals mostly, but there obviously is a lot missing, and there's a lot of inequality amongst certain groups of people that needs to be resolved still. But I mean, there's equality in going to school and some basic things, but not necessarily the quality of the school and where everybody lives. So it's like a mixed bag because, like, it's difficult for like people that come from a very different, one thing that's different in Denmark, when we moved here, we were like, oh, well, we need to find a house in a specific neighborhood so that we have the right school system. Because in the U.S., when you're buying a house in the U.S.,
it makes a big difference.
you're looking on the website about the house, and it tells you the rating of the schools there, and that affects the quality of the the price of the house, and all that. And you buy to be in a specific neighborhood for different schools and stuff. And we thought that was a thing here, but in reality, that is a thing in the U.S. where certain schools are better than other schools, which means it's harder for the kids in those schools to maybe get opportunity to get out of that area or to do more. And that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. There are some people that are able to overcome all that despite the difficulty. But then in cases like our schools, which were better schools, it was a lot easier to excel and move on because we had a good school system and stuff. And I think it's ironic though, because there's a lot of people that think there's equality. But those same people are the ones that are happy that their housing prices are going up because they're in a school district that's good. And that in itself is a representation of the fact that there is an inequality in schools as an example.
And I think people kind of take for granted how incredibly hard generational poverty is, not only in inner cities and stuff, but also like the area of America where my family came from is incredibly poor. And it is so hard to get out because there's just, because there's the housing market affects how good the schools are. And so then you've got, the parents can't really have good jobs and give the kids good growing, environments because they're just poor and living paycheck to paycheck, if that. And then needed to stop that is, huge. And the camera is like doing something funky, but
yeah, I don't know. I think we're still here.
Just like,
but I don't, here's the thing though. I don't necessarily, I think the US probably multiplies that, but I don't think that's a uniquely American thing. There is
I don't
disparity
think that's
across these things, and that's all at varying degrees and different levels.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's, it's not like every place in every country is completely equal no matter what, and everybody gets the same opportunity. In reality, there's going to be differences.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit more evident due to the size of America and the fact that there's like massive cities and downtown cities that have challenges. And then there's the suburbs where like, people live out that often have better money and get more blah, blah, blah. Then there's like the middle of America, which is like a bunch of nothing. Yeah. And then there's just like random farmers.
Well, it's interesting. Somebody asked, do you have Appalachian family? I don't have Appalachian family, but I grew up in Appalachia. So I grew up like right on basically kind of the outskirts of Appalachia. So I grew up in the area called the Cumberland Mountains, which is kind of on the edge of Appalachia. And Appalachia is where Dolly Parton's from. And that is just like incredibly poor part of America. It still is like Sevier County where she's from is actually still quite poor. But my family actually comes from another part of America, but very similar economic conditions. So it's the Ozarks down in Missouri. So it's like the boot heel of Missouri and then northern Arkansas. That's where my family is from. And the poverty rate there is like 70% live below the poverty line. It's really bad. So I do want to go back because one of my coworkers whom I met last week in the Netherlands when I was there for work has written a few things, and I think it's interesting. He has thoughts.
He said, I always, he's one of these, like with like post-COVID time and less traveling and stuff, there's a lot of coworkers I work with that I just talk to on Teams and maybe hear me talking like a big call, and I never get to meet him. I met him last week. And he said, I always wondered if the American dream consists of driving the bigger car, living in the bigger house, even or especially if you can't afford it and have to go into big debt. I think that's, I wouldn't necessarily say that's.
I wouldn't say that's the dream, but that's what people end up doing to themselves.
Well, it's a mix too.
Get to the dream.
And the bigger car, maybe. I think it's harder to get car debt than it is house debt because a car inherently has almost no value the second you buy, or it's got reduced value the second you buy it, whereas a house retains some value and a bank can take it over and sell it and get their money back. There's like legit collateral. So I think people are more likely to get into a house that they can't afford than necessarily a car. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean that people don't have cars they shouldn't have, but
unfortunately, the biggest amount of debt that people have now is student loan debt.
Yeah,
and that's something we escaped. I will say that my parents did give me that.
But what's really interesting is, people have said this in past comments, is that Denmark actually has a really high amount of debt. But part of it is because of houses.
Yeah, because people own homes.
People own homes, and the homes are ridiculously expensive here. Yeah. Somebody said something here. I want to make sure I say it right, where they mentioned, homes being like, in 1973, the U.S. average cost to buy a home was 3 times the average annual salary. Yeah. I'm taking this as fact. I don't know. This is what somebody's written. Today, the average home costs over 7 times. Yeah. But honestly, I think even in Denmark, the average home is considerably higher than their average salary, like the entire cost in terms of their yearly salary. So I don't think that's an exclusively American issue.
No, but I think the debt to income ratio is smaller probably.
No, because I think people have less. I mean, this is just conjecture. I have no data to support this, but I believe people have less credit card debt here, but have a much higher amount of housing debt because they also want to be able to lower their deductibles with their taxes because there's incentives and stuff from a tax perspective, which here with taxes being higher, you want to be able to do something about that. Whereas in the U.S., I think people carry more credit card debt and other kinds of debt, but that's much lower than, one would have to have like 6 credit cards in order to equal the same amount of debt they'd have in a house.
But I think in the U.S., the problem is not only do you have household debt, you have car debt and you have student loan debt, which is insane. And then you have credit card debt on top of that. And all of that, like especially the student loan debt, is compounding. And so it's just getting bigger by the year, and you're just kind of digging yourself a hole. And especially for people, if you went and got an advanced degree, there's people with like $300,000. They haven't even started their career, and they have $300,000 of debt.
Yeah, but that's still, unless they buy a house, that's still less than what most people have. Not most, but in Denmark, a lot of people would have that much debt in a house. So I'm just saying it's like, a house tends to be the largest amount of debt that you get yourself into. Somebody said something, would you agree that U.S. is not a first world country? No, the U.S. is definitely a first world country. It's not a third world country at all.
It's not third world.
And actually, if you look at the numbers of poverty line, it is still much better than it was in the past.
Yeah.
There are situations, and I'm not saying it's great. There's definitely people that struggle, and I don't want to imply that there isn't. But if you look at how the U.S. was 60, 70, 80 years ago, the poverty line, we had so many more people in poverty back then.
Yeah, but I guess the challenge for me is the access to, medical care and the access to education and the access to transportation. And if you compare the U.S. to like Denmark, obviously it's a completely different market because Denmark only has 5 million people.
They asked if it was a third world country, though. Comparing that to a third world country, then no. We have access to transportation, and it's not.
Do they in Ozarks, Missouri? They don't.
But they have pickup trucks. It's always been that way, though. It's always been that way. It's not like there's been a change that all of a sudden people in the Ozarks can't get on trains. It's always been that way. I think that, the U.S. is a massive economy, and there's tons of wealth and tons of things happening there. There's obviously things that aren't great, but to imply that means it's a third world country is just not.
No, I don't think anybody's saying it's third world. They just said, do you still think it's a first world country?
Is there a second world country? I feel like there's only like first and third. Nobody ever talks about the seconds out there. Is that like?
It's like 1.5.
I don't know about that. This is my point. Somebody said you can sell the house and pay a bank back.
Yeah.
And that was my point. Because of that, I think bank debt or housing debt tends to be higher because there's some kind of collateral involved versus stuff that literally no collateral.
CERN asked, is poverty a minimum wage thing in the areas Miranda talked about, and can it be helped, or is work just scarce in those areas, or is it a people leaving those areas and creating ghost towns? It's all three. That's what's happening in a lot of these, smaller rural communities, that it's just turning into ghost towns. People are leaving and not coming back, and it's just really impacting, the industry. It's a large agricultural area, and there's not a lot of people going into farming and stuff. Those were the big things back in the day, but there's just not a lot of people going into farming these days.
This is super nice. Somebody said, I feel weird saying this. Don't feel weird. But you guys have such a positive impact on my day every time I see you're uploading best wishes for a long time supper. That's super nice of you. And I wish that we were able to maintain the same level of updates as we did in the past. This is such a struggle. Yes, medical, I agree 100%. Medical costs are obviously a big thing, but I think the thing that's different about medical costs is a lot of those tend to get incurred at the end of one's life. And so the time that they're there to pay, it's like they end up getting assumed by other people in some cases, or if they pass away, their estate takes over, whatever, debt is there and pays that off. Student loans are pretty significant as well. And that's something that you get the moment you're like starting off. Trying to start a life and you're already in a hole. But medical debt, I don't want to diminish that. It's obviously a huge issue as well, but that's I think you're at a different state in your life then, where I think a lot of people just, you do what you have to do, and then
Yeah, I mean, I'll only pay HOA feed.
But anyway, second world countries do exist, but seem to be in Cold War. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And somebody said something. Oh yeah, Dope Sick. By the way, they mentioned this earlier. Is a super. You didn't watch it because you barely watch TV. But Dope Sick was a super good series that talked a lot about basically
I think I heard about this. Yeah, the fentanyl stuff.
And more about it starting with opioids and how it like moved into not I guess fentanyl maybe a piece, but it was more about
was that
opioids.
The thing that Michael Keaton was in?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See,
And that was
I watched enough to know.
Yeah, you know,
Who's in
like
it?
actors that are in them. Hey, Michael's here. Cost of living salaries and quality of
Michael.
life varies widely across the U.S., not only at macro geo level, but also micro level.
Yeah.
Homelessness and major issues in big cities where there is huge wealth, of course, absolutely. And hello, Michael. I was chatting with him on text. I feel like that was yesterday.
wonderful.
I've lost all track of time. I think it was yesterday because I don't know. I came back from Norway and it's just been a blur.
You're just lost.
I think
You
it's
don't know what's
Wednesday.
happening. I think it is Wednesday.
Yeah.
I get lost because we had the holiday and then I
that makes it
forget
even
what
trickier.
day it is.
Yeah, and then next week's a holiday too on Monday. Some people have off. I have off.
Some of you.
Yeah, but I have to
a
fly to
holiday.
London on Monday, so
don't
half
have
my
a
holiday is occupied by going to the airport and flying to London. Although I will have a steak dinner, I think, when I get there, and maybe some kind of beer. Hi from
have to
Arhus,
have-
and somebody asked, but I think Maya was asking what you were drinking, but I'll start with what I'm drinking. By the way, so as part of our anniversary trip,
Yes.
which we'll talk about later, we stopped by Tuul. And I got
It's toe, not two.
I got a glass.
Toul.
I got a glass,
Yes.
and I got some beers. And this is the Strobe smoothie style sour ale brewed
gonna say,
with
is it a
strawberry,
sour? Looks like
banana,
a sour.
and coconut. Yeah, I
really
think
nice.
summer sours. So this is
Maya just ate a burrito. I hate you.
well. We had a burrito in Norway.
I'm drinking. Actually, these were really nice because I always get sad when we go to breweries and I basically can't drink anything. Although I will say Toul makes Stumble Juice, which is a gluten-free beer that I can actually have. But they also had these pre-mixed cocktails, and this one is by they were by Micropolis. I'm probably saying that wrong. So I got a 6-pack of them, and they've been really good. This one is like lingonberry and orange peel and gin and tonic.
And that glass,
And this glass
came from Japan. Mine I bought in
did.
Japan. And somebody asked,
brought it
what's
back.
my favorite airport? Because I've been to a few. I used to keep track. Somewhere I had a list of all the airports that I've been to. And it's been a lot. And I would say the one in Singapore is probably the nicest one. You haven't been to Singapore?
I haven't been to that one. That one looks so cool.
I've been like 4 or 5 times. But the last time I
Yeah.
was there, they just opened the new section with the like indoor waterfall thing. And
Yeah,
Maya and I saw
yeah.
that. And it was super cool. It's just like a very nice airport. And that
Yeah.
was also when Maya was like on her crutches. And so we got like special treatment. Although one time I was in China, I guess, for work. I think it was in Beijing and or Shanghai. And I had like status, and they like picked me up in a little golf cart and drove me all the way to mine. So I think the treatment was nice.
That's
and
fancy.
The airports in Asia are like a mix of nicer and
I can't
good
even
treatment
remember
depending
the
on.
airports in China that we were in. Those were the only. I was only ever in the one in Beijing, I think.
Well, no. Well, on that trip we went to Beijing and Shanghai and Guilin. So you've been to a couple airports there, but
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, I really like the Copenhagen airport. It's like small but mighty. You know.
yeah, exactly. People purposely book so they can stay in the airport in Singapore. It is such a nice
Did you take
airport.
high-speed trains yet? Like France, Germany, Italy, or Spain?
Yes, we went when the first time we went to
did. The
Paris.
very first time we
we
went to
took a
France.
high-speed train down to Lyon for the day.
Yeah. it's
I've
been a long
also taken a high-speed train. I think on another time when I was in France for work, maybe to meetings I had in Geneva. I think that was a
Yeah.
high-speed train. I feel like that, and in Japan. I think Maya and I took some high-speed trains in Japan.
But we do have one high-speed train between DC and New York that people would take all the time.
Okay, this is a very good
you've done
question, I
that.
think, to end this American dream topic. If you were to wake up tomorrow and live your American dream, what would it be if you could choose.
Live your own American dream.
The good news is, when I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be exactly where I want to be.
I feel like that's so interesting. So because somebody asked in one of my Facebook groups, they were like, if you could basically like go into witness protection program, who would you recreate yourself as, and like what would your persona be? And I said I would be an eccentric like gardening neighbor named Marnie who lives on the outskirts of Farum in a Danish cottage with a pot-bellied pig and a hound dog and 3 cats.
But you can save that for our
for retirement.
No, we have this idea. I don't know if I should give this away. But there's only 129 people watching.
Yeah.
We have this idea that if we ever go on a cruise one day, we've never been on a cruise, that we'll just completely make up personas and be like
We've
different
talked about
people
this for years.
and be like, say like, I don't, you can't find me on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. So nobody's going to track you down. And just be like, just make up something.
Disable your Facebook for the week that you're gone.
No, just say you have a different name and everything. You can be different people, different names. They can't find you. Say, I don't believe in social media. I'm not Instagram or Facebook or anything.
No.
And just completely make up something. And I really, the problem is I really want to develop an accent, and that would be a lot of work. I feel like I'm so committed to this idea. I'd go to a vocal coach to help me learn an accent so that I can really, really do it. And by the way, I got to say, because Maya keeps saying this, telling fake stories. Maya mentioned this on the train, on one of the trains in Japan. It was just Maya and I. And we were going from, I guess, Tokyo to Kyoto, maybe.
Yeah.
And I left my iPad on the train. And I realized it when I got off.
Michael's got to leave. Sorry. I just want to say
See
bye.
you, Michael.
Bye.
And I realized it when we got off the train, as the train was like going away. I'm like, oh, and it's like going away. I left it in like the seat. And so I got off the train and I like went. It's very difficult to communicate with people when you don't speak Japanese.
Lot of miming and
no.
like,
Well, I had my phone, so I'm like Google Translate, and I'm like, I wrote in there like blah blah blah. I forgot it, and I held it up to them, and he figured it out, and he called them, and they got the iPad, they took it out, they stored it in the lost and found.
Yeah.
We got on the train, went that one stop back, got it, and came back, and we got the iPad back. It was very amazing.
So somebody asked, what is the most difficult thing to turn to here in Denmark? I don't know what that
I'm not sure exactly what that means.
And someone from the U.S. is joking, do you know where Denmark is? Actually, oddly enough, when we were telling people that we were moving to Denmark, I had people who thought we were moving to the Netherlands. Somebody thought Maya had said we were moving to Denver. It's just like we had to correct an unfortunate amount of people about where Denmark was.
Ooh, this would be good, an impromptu murder mystery game. That would be fun if we said there was something. Like if we make up a whole... murder is probably a little extreme, but maybe we could just like make up this whole... Like I think we could create like a weird like, I don't know, like treasure hunt thing on a cruise about some... Like we could just like the glass onion... Kind of, we can just come up with some weird... I
feel like I've heard about that somewhere where there's like some kind of thing that you can sign up and everybody gets a persona at the beginning and you have to like embody that persona.
All right. Well, so let's move on from the American Dream for a moment and go on to another topic. This is like, I don't have it tried on Tuesday because, well, it's not Tuesday, it's Wednesday, so it doesn't feel...
Somebody explained to turn to, what's the hardest thing to adapt to
in Denmark? Hardest thing to adapt to in Denmark? The language.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
That is pretty hard. Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest thing, and it's unfortunate too because like I really, Norwegians, I really want to get better at the language, and actually I reached out to our private tutor. We have the same private tutor, and I reached out to her again today, and I was like, it's been 6 weeks of me not having lessons because I was just way too busy, and my brain was not ready at the end of the day for doing Danish. But that is, I think, probably the biggest hurdle we have. I feel like we've adjusted to pretty much everything else.
No, Maya, okay. And now let me say, Maya, we're not going to tell the Norwegian story because you and I are going to do that when we do the video about our trip to Norway. So we got to save some of it from when Maya were just in, the bridges, nightmare bridges, to be more specific. All right, so... Let's talk about this. We had our 23rd wedding anniversary just
Yes.
on May 20th, which I know has been like a week and a half now, but feels like
Yes.
yesterday.
But
Because
store till
and
till us.
so we went to Drag's Home Slut,
Yes, which I've been bugging you about going to for a while.
and we spent the night, and
because apparently it's the most haunted castle in Europe.
it was super nice, and there's going to be a video in the future about that.
Yes.
And so I didn't tell you this, but I want to bring this topic up. We're going to see how this goes because this will be interesting. So
No.
a while ago, I think it's relevant because we had our anniversary, and I feel like you and I are aligned on this. But if not, I
Okay.
guess I might get in trouble. I don't know. We'll see. So this was on. I like to watch the Bill Maher show.
Yeah.
You know, and if for those that don't know, he even had a show before called Politically Incorrect like 20 years ago, and I saw it live once. He was in DC. And
I'm sure you've told me that, but I forgot.
we were married, so you knew about it. And so I'm a fan, and I just think it's an interesting show. And so recently, this gal Esther Perel, I think is how you say her name, was on it, and she's a psychotherapist. Known for her work on human relationships. So she was there to talk about relationships. And the way that it works is they have the whole show. This is Real Time with Bill Maher. They have the whole show where people are debating and talking about topics. She was actually interviewed earlier. And then afterwards, they like do this overtime thing where people ask questions. So people ask questions, and they asked her about soulmates.
Oh.
And if she believes in soulmates.
Yeah.
And so she said soulmate for most of the history meant God and your relationship with God. I'm like paraphrasing a little bit. It's not word for word her quote. To demand from our partner the very things we used to demand from religion, like wholeness, wasn't part of the committed relationships or what marriage was about. Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting and makes me feel okay with the fact that I don't believe in soulmates because it implies that a relationship was ordained by God in some way.
No.
And that puts a ton of pressure on the person that you're with. If you're now, according to like what she's talking about, right, is you're now asking that other person to basically replace what in previous generations was like what God was there for.
Yeah.
Now that person have to do it. So what do you think about soulmates and stuff now that we've been married 23 years?
I don't think of us as soulmates in that we were like destined to meet each other kind of soulmate thing, but I think we were very, very lucky in finding each other as early as we did, because I think we have that kind of like soulmate thing. Like I think we've grown as a couple at the same time together, and I think a lot of people don't do that. I think that's why a lot of people, get divorced. That you just get together and you write for each other for a certain amount of time, and then you just grow up and you grow apart. And I think we've managed to grow together and support each other together for 25 years. I mean, we've been together for 25 years. So I think that in that sense, I think we're kind of soulmates in that way.
Yeah, but I think,
but not the ordained by God.
Yeah,
way.
not like someone picked that we're going to be together.
Yeah,
I mean, I think life circumstances put us in a situation where we're together. I mean, think about like when we travel, it's like the amount of people that you pass every day that you're never going to ever know or meet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's crazy to think that, to me, that God said, no, but you're the one. I mean, we're just in a situation then we just evolved in a way to make it all work.
Exactly.
And it was difficult times and easy times, and that's part of it.
Nothing supernatural about it. It was honestly just like pure luck that we, ran into each other, I think. So
yeah, I mean, and that's how it probably is with most people.
Yeah.
And I think Maya said that in her mind, soulmate is just the person you end up with. I mean, I think that's in that way, it's kind of just another way to describe you end up with the person you end up with. But some people like literally think that and believe that, we were ordained to be with one another.
No.
And I don't think that's the case.
Think that.
And I think that's a ton of pressure to put on the other person.
No.
And so I think that was an interesting kind of, that was like, she was on like 3 or 4, no, maybe a month and a half ago. It's been moving from live stream to live stream, and I finally got a chance to talk about it. Yeah. Because I think it's an interesting topic.
Yeah. Somebody said we're perfect, that they're not soulmates, but they love and respect each other, and we're perfect teammates. I think that's the goal. What we are. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like too much pressure. Then it's like a plan. Like I was talking to somebody about this today, like planning. And like I like plans, But I think if you plan things too much, you're just going to be disappointed because it's never going to work out the way you think. And that's how, like, putting so much pressure and saying this is this person I have to.
You don't meet what I want you to be.
Then you need to be that to me. And this soulmate thing, and also that also goes back to, like, not just an American dream, but like a marriage concept that is going to be different for everybody too. Yeah. That's just a ton of pressure to put on another person. It's going to be really hard to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. You seem like a non-godly alliance. I'm just going to refer to us as that now. We're a non-godly alliance.
Yeah, that's better than ungodly, I guess.
Ungodly alliance.
So that was one thing I thought would be interesting to talk about. Now, I think another. So I want to make a quick update because if you remember last time I was here, I put this photo up of the bird, because I put these bird things. Here, check this out. I got a video.
Oh, we got more video.
Look, I got a video. No, that was a picture I took quickly with my phone.
Oh, yeah. And
but then I took my old ring cam and
nice.
set up, and I got a short video of this bird hanging out on the little bird feeder in the house.
And that is now Ollie's favorite place to sit.
And now the birds don't come back because Ollie the cat sits there staring at birds all the time, and I never get to see the birds anymore. And I looked up there. I've been gone for like a week and a half. There's still bird food in there so I'm going to print out more of those bird feeders and try to like lure her to other windows.
Yeah.
So my work
Well, now she's lured into the bathroom sink all the time. That's where she likes to live. So,
yeah. Well, so that was one thing, and now I think something big has occurred since the last time we had a live stream, and that thing is known as Eurovision.
Yes.
And
Eurovision.
This
was the first year that I was
adapting
like
to Eurovision.
Yeah.
Is a huge thing. And it's funny because this distant cousin of mine was here connecting through Copenhagen on the way back to the U.S. and he had an overnight, and so he stayed with us. We had dinner, and I didn't even remember.
Yeah.
I didn't even remember that this was Eurovision Day.
Yeah.
And
when your cousin came over, and it was the final.
Yeah. So, and so we ended up spending all night watching it.
I'm sorry, this is totally off topic. Somebody's like, you're filming other people's homes. Oops, sorry.
I'm not worried. I'm filming. Yeah, it's fine. And so we watched this, and it was it was insane.
Yeah.
And
oh my God, it was so great.
So my cousin was like, he also didn't know it was coming, and I feel like it's like an hour of singing and then like 7 hours of reading back the votes. And the poor guy was like had an early flight, and he's like stayed up all night and watched the whole thing because he's like, I'm in Europe, so I'm going to do this.
He was up until 1 a.m. I scared the dog when Katia got his public vote because I was very much rooting for Finland. The cha-cha-cha was just elite this year. And I know, Laureen, like, the song was all right, and obviously it's a pop, it's catchy and stuff, and I'm one of the conspiracy theorists who's like, oh, Sweden won because next year's ABBA's 50th anniversary of winning Eurovision.
That's a bit early. Maybe next year winning for that reason. But it's more she's like already a popular artist.
No, because if they win this year, then
I
next year
know.
Sweden hosts it.
I know, but I don't know if people are thinking that far ahead.
And apparently Denmark did not do well. But it was made up for by the fact that Finland was just like off the hook. I can't stop listening to it. And honestly, like he's got Katia has a whole TikTok channel now, and he's just like my spirit animal. He's so ridiculous and fun, and I think that's why I liked it.
Yeah, I don't remember Norway's as much as last year's Norway with the eating the grandmother and the banana thing or whatever. Yeah. I remember that a lot more than this year's Norway.
Yeah, no, the Norway song, the Queen of Kings, that was a really good song too. I liked that one.
Yeah, so we did. I remember when we first moved here, I don't think you were here yet when Eurovision was happening.
No, I don't think so.
And I had like nothing, just like a TV.
And you're just like, I'm watching Eurovision.
Well, I didn't even have any. I don't think I had a way to watch it. I guess I had a TV, but I don't think I had stream. I had like basic streaming. I don't think I had a way to like watch live stuff like that. I don't think it was streaming on YouTube at the time. And I came home, and like in a lot of houses in Denmark, like TVs are like facing the street, and you can just like see in their window and see everybody in the whole neighborhood's watching this.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what was going on, and you guys missed it. And then it was the next year. Yeah. And then there was a break for a couple of years because of COVID. So now it's full on. Yeah, there's Maya. Cha-cha. You know, this is. I think Maya is very, very disappointed that she's probably not here at this moment talking about this.
Oh, it was great. One day I picked Maya up from the train, and I put Cha 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 on Spotify, and as I picked her up, I like kind of turned it down because I had it up a little bit loud, and I picked her up, and she opened the door. She was like, "Why did you turn that down? Who told you could turn it down?" So we rolled down the windows and just absolutely blasted Cha 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 out of the car, and the guy on the sidewalk started hysterically laughing. So it was worth it. It was great.
Yeah.
Be cautious adopting my spirit animal on TikTok.
Okay, so I had a couple other things.
Okay.
I wanted to show this because I love.
What are we looking at? I can't see it.
When I flew back from the Netherlands,
you
I
and
mean, my favorite thing to do
photos.
is to just look out and look at this beautiful Copenhagen. It was a little bit kind of like, gray, but it was still, I could see everything from the plane, and I just love it. I just love looking out of the plane. And when I fly,
Now
but
I
when
feel
we
bad
flew,
getting annoyed because you take the window seat off.
but when we flew to Norway, I don't think we
he's
told you
like a
this.
little kid.
So when Maya and I flew to Norway, we're going to land, and we're like 30 seconds from touch, if that, maybe 20 seconds from touching, and he like gears it up, and we take off again. And then we fly around for another like 25 minutes before we land. I'm like, what is going on? When are we gonna get on the ground?
Yeah.
And it turns out we hung out with my friend Martin, who you've probably seen in some videos if you watch stuff, drinking Budweiser and nonsense with me, and eating combos with me. And we ran over his hat with a tank. He's in Norway, so we hung out with him, and his dad actually works at the airport, and they were both speculating why. Yeah. Apparently, these small planes though from Copenhagen, the direct planes from Copenhagen into Trondheim, sometimes struggle with the wind because they're smaller. It wasn't like a huge plane,
so maybe it wasn't a good approach.
Yeah, so that was fascinating, and but I got to see everything twice when I was looking at that plane.
You should get a light looped around. Yeah. Somebody said you should get that. I promise that will not happen.
That will not happen.
Josh is terrified of
that.
But
why don't we talk about this picture we didn't get to last time?
No. Oh, yes. So, I think this was one of the things that I don't remember what the task was. Find like 3 things that we were thinking about. Oh, I know what it was. I was like going through a box, and I happened to find my medieval times photos. And the thing about medieval times is like, I get it. You guys had actual medieval times here, so who needs that? It is just one of my favorite places to go. It is so cheesy. It's so scripted. It is an absolute blast every time. So I'll explain the guy in the middle. So Maya and our birthdays are like 3 weeks apart. And so we would go twice a year, once at Mother's Day and once in between our birthdays. And this time, I think it was the Mother's Day trip. And we showed up, and you can... like I always would get the VIP package and stuff, and that included a photo. And we walked into the room where they were doing photos, and you could get, there was like the Queen there. And this was a new thing for medieval times because they used to have the king, and you could get your picture taken with the king. But now they had the Queen. So everybody was lined up for the Queen, but they have a falcon as part of the show. And like this guy comes out to the center of the arena, and like this falcon flies around and stuff. And so this dude was there with the falcon. And I went over and I asked the lady, I was like, can I get my picture with the falcon? And she was like, of course. And so I think like the Queen lady was put out because me and Maya like beelined it over to the falcon guy. And we just like so proudly stood next to him with this falcon and got our pictures taken.
The falcon like blends in with his outfit. You can barely see.
Really
he's got
see
a falcon. You can see the claws.
Yeah, he's the falconer, and then there's if you look real close, there's the falcon there hanging out, and that was just so great. And then we went in, and we had like, these seats really close up. And I think Maya got the rose or something from one of the nights and stuff. So,
hey, yes. And Cable Guy is a great movie. And it is a very good situation around the whole medieval times. I'll go because it's just stupid. So we've been to the one, if you didn't know this, the medieval, there's I'm going to say 5 of 6 of them, maybe.
There's like 7.
But the one in
around.
California is the one that was used in the movie.
Yes,
Cable
and we've
Guy.
been to that
And we've
one.
been to that one.
Yes.
And then there's one outside of Chicago that you guys would go to.
Yeah.
And we're going to go this summer, so it's been
I
on the
know,
minds.
because I said we cannot go to Chicago and not. There's also one in D.C., but Maya
Yeah,
went
it's
to
like
it.
Maryland,
and apparently,
isn't it, like out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah,
Maryland?
and apparently it just does not have the same vibe as the one in Schaumburg outside Chicago. So that was my one demand when we go to Chicago, is that we go out to Schaumburg and go to medieval times.
There's got to be one in Florida. And actually, what's in Florida that's better is the pirate ship thing that we did.
Oh God, the
I wish I
pirate
don't have that photo handy, but one it was like it's like the medieval. So if you don't like medieval times, you're like around this arena,
Yeah.
you know, seated looking at this arena where all these people are doing all these like horse things and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then in this case, there's a pirate ship in the middle with like water.
Yeah, with water
And they
around
do
it.
this whole like pirate. Like musical, I guess there's some music and then some
Yeah.
acting and live action, let's
Yeah.
say, like thing on a pirate ship. And one time we were there on Maya's birthday and we told them and she got to go out on the pirate ship and
Yeah.
they told her happy birthday and
Actually, it may have been that trip. I'm not sure. But one time we went and it was for Mother's Day, and it was literally like days before we were leaving for Denmark. And I was like, we've got to go one last time. I got to go to medieval times one last time. And so we went, and there's this thing that you can do. You could do it at the pirate place too, like tell them it's your birthday or something. And so I told them, I signed up, and I was like, you know, they do these announcements and they have these very English accents, and it's like, and hello to the family young who will soon be moving abroad to the kingdom of Denmark.
You need to practice that because that's going to be our voice when we're on the cruise. Yes, we are the youngs.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Oh, yes.
yes, man. So since I talked about Norway, I had to just show
Yes.
a couple pictures. This was the last day. We actually had blue sky on the Old Town Bridge there in Trondheim. This was every other day.
Yeah.
Basically, lots of clouds and not very much sky. This was probably taken at like 11 o'clock at night because it's so bright there.
It's so bright.
But
Wow.
this was finally, we saw some blue. It's a very gray place this time of year, although it was cool. But we're not going to say much more because this is going to be a video that Maya and I will put together
Yes.
in the future. And hi, guys from Oslo. Hello from Oslo, Norway.
Yes.
I
didn't go to
didn't
EC
go
Dahl's
to
Brewery.
Dahl's Brewery, but I did drink the beer. We ate at the Good Neighbor, which is old.
Good Neighbor?
It's like a really small. It's like on the water there, an old
okay.
place. It's like Dingo Nabu.
Yeah. Okay.
So we had a beer there, and I had
Alright.
Dolls there, and then we ate at this nice place called the Crab, which is like a.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Remember
so
when
we had,
you were like trying to find that?
langoustine and some mussels.
That's the place we were at our we were at our anniversary dinner, and Josh had been so busy he was trying to plan this trip like at the anniversary dinner, and he was like, "Oh my god, I found this place called Crab."
Yeah, it's like I needed to figure out some. Well, I realized when we were in Faro like a few weeks prior, I didn't book anything ahead of time, and it was
Yeah.
really hard to get reservations at places. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to do this at least a week ahead of time. So while we were sitting and waiting for our food, so we ate at the Crab. And at the Crab, I had this wheat beer from Dolls. So
Yeah.
Dolls, though, is I also had though at the Good Neighbor place. They have their own little microbrew there that I had.
Oh, somebody said you should visit Eddie at Mitford's.
Yeah, well,
we
have
know
a
Eddie.
go back to our Christmas Christmas
we met
drinking.
Eddie. He's fabulous.
Yeah, we didn't go see his stand up, which I would have liked to have done, but it's in Danish, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't understand it. But we did a whole Christmas
great
episode
guy.
at Mitfun's Brew House, and I
love
still
Eddie.
have some of the beer because he
Yeah.
was kind enough to hook us up, and I still haven't had it all.
Yeah. Somebody wants to know
what do you do when we're
what
gone?
do I do when I? So I have. This is like what, your 12th year doing this?
So we did it the first time in 2010. No, 2012. But 12,
Okay, so 11.
No, 12, 13, 14,
Yeah, so
15,
then
16, 17,
12.
18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3. It's
Yeah.
12th
So
one,
your
yes.
12th time. Oh, it's your dad. He wants to compare medieval times to Dixie Stampede. But
Hey, Dad.
so I call it my momcation when they go away, and I basically just hole up in the house and do different things. Like one year they went away and I built a dollhouse. This year, one day I dressed up And the closest I could get to medieval clothing, and went to the Viking festival in Ballerup. One day I did a bunch of gardening and planted a bunch of flowers. And then one day my friend came over and she and I did like miniatures. I actually worked on my Lego Rivendell. So, I mean, that's just the kind of stuff I do. Like one trip I watched all 12 or all 7 Harry Potter movies or 8 Harry Potter movies. And
So I have to say, Lassa, yes, but you have to count 12. 2012 was one of them.
yes.
So if you're counting
If you count
it happened
12,
in that year as
yeah,
well, it's
Then
actually been the
it's
12th
12
one.
times.
And so I do have to say, because my dad, I feel like he should trump all questions because he's my dad. Compare medieval times to Dixie Stampede.
It's
So Dixie
been a
Stampede.
long time since I've been to Dixie Stampede.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Dixie Stampede is a medieval times like place, but it's in the South.
It's next to Dollywood.
It's
in
next to
Pigeon
Dollywood.
Forge.
Is it still open?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, but it's more like Old West-ish, Texas-ish themed.
Yeah,
It's not like medieval time where there's
Yeah.
like sword fighting and stuff and like, you know what.
It's like Old West kind of stuff.
And I think there's more like I think it's more, I feel like that's more of an orchestrated show,
Yeah.
you know, like with music. And I think there's music while people are going around.
Medieval times is
It
pretty
is, but that's more like a
orchestrated.
play.
Yeah, that's
You know,
true.
but I think but I've only been to Dixie Stampede once. I mean, I went with my parents.
They
like,
got a pig race.
many
It's
many
great.
years ago.
Yeah.
That might have been before we were together, or maybe you were with. Maybe we went.
I think you and I went together
with
when.
them.
Yeah, but I think we went. Didn't we go when we were on our honeymoon? Because we spent like a couple days in Pigeon Forge.
Oh, so my dad's saying it's a north and south. So I guess there's a battle between the north and the south. It's been a long time, Dad. I don't remember. I've had so many life experiences since then. I can't remember. It's literally, I had to have been 20 years. And it was before you and I were together, and it's like 25, 26 years ago.
No.
I feel like it was before, I think what happened was I was in school in Tennessee, and I think there was like a summer break, and I went with my parents while I was in Tennessee, and either I went because it's not that far from MTSU, or right before they dropped me off. So I think it was like when I was in college. So it would have been like 96, 97, or 98 after we met.
that makes sense that you would have stopped there. Brisket did not participate in the medieval dress up thing because Brisket, he really doesn't like crowds, so I didn't take him to there. And he has not seen the Harry Potter movies. But I will say one of the things I did do while you guys were gone was I started watching the Star Wars prequels again.
Oh, that's why you sent me a picture and you said something about
that he was very
Anakin,
concerned
and I'm
for
like,
Anakin's
I don't know what
safety.
that's about, but okay.
And you know what? It was because I had gotten into talking about it with one of my coworkers about like Star Wars, and then we had this long discussion about like the prequels and what do we think about it. And I was like, you know what? I honestly have not watched the prequels since they came out, and so I thought maybe I'll watch them and see if they're as bad as I remember. And honestly, they're not that bad. They're not like I had it in my head that they were really horrible, and they're honestly not that bad.
I mean, I think they're good. They're okay, but there's also so much stuff that you've never seen that I would be watching first.
Yeah, but you know me. I'll go back and watch,
I know, but man, that Obi-Wan was good and all these other
I
things.
watched Obi-Wan.
But then there's other
all of
stuff. There's
it.
just whatever.
Yeah.
Maya and I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3 while we were in Norway.
Yeah. No, meanwhile, I found out that they had Lion in Winter from like 1967 with Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn. And I was like, oh my God, get a glass of wine. My evening was done.
All hooked on Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars is fantastic. And I do, we all watch it. We've seen them all.
Yeah.
Oh man, Kenobi
was
good.
trash.
That was
Come
super
on.
good.
I liked that show.
Speaking of Tennessee, will Nashville get an expansion MLB team? There's a lot of questions in that sentence because there's also Karen Nate.
That's true.
Answer
Jar
one:
Mustard.
I didn't know that MLB was looking to expand. Because they had so many struggles
Nashville's
financially in the
getting pretty
past,
big,
but
though.
Nashville did get a soccer team, football
Yeah.
team recently, and they've got
Brisket
hockey,
is
they got
Virginia
football.
team.
Maybe if they expand, Nashville would be a place. I mean, that'd be great.
I mean,
They
back
have-
when we were in Nashville
but
was
they
not
barely
big enough
support
to...
the Sounds, which is the
Yeah.
team that's there now. But I mean, I love Nashville, so I go to baseball games there if I could. And we followed Karen Nate, so we have watched a ton of stuff from Kara and Nate, but I've been super bad at following people lately.
Yeah.
Like when we bought the house, I bought a new. So here's the thing: we have an Apple TV, and that's what I watch YouTube on.
Yeah.
And I don't log in because I want to see what it anonymously recommends me if it doesn't know who I am. And it's a new one. We got a new one, and so I have to like retrain it. I haven't retrained it into the anonymous YouTube. So it hasn't figured out I like Kara and Nate. I do like Endless Adventure as well, but I've watched literally none of their stuff in a long time. Although I do have to say, this is one point because I did see Kara and Nate recently posted a video about how they visited all of the 7 wonders of the world because they recently went to. You should see this thing; it's crazy. They went to the Christ statue in Brazil, but they like got to go inside it and came out its arm and something.
That's crazy.
I would never do that.
No thanks.
But I thought about it, and I've actually been to all of the 7 wonders of the world, and I thought maybe I should. I don't have video from all of them, but I have pictures from everything. And so you haven't been to them all. You've been to the Great Wall.
No, I know, but I'm trying to think of when you. What are they? Now I can't remember what all they are.
Without you, I've been to Machu Picchu. I've been to Chichen Itza. I've been to Petra. But there's also the Colosseum. There's the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's one more that I missed.
Pyramids.
Well, that's like an honorary one because it's one of the original ones. And then of course the Brazil, and we were in Brazil together. But I've been to Chichen Itza, Machu Picchu, and Petra without you.
Also, I have to say, Spaceballs is one of my favorite movies. It is up there with Airplane. I love both of those movies so much. I will watch anything Mel Brooks. It is hilarious.
Yeah, by the way, Oakland needs to just leave Oakland. I know Michael left. He might have opinions on this because Michael lives in San Francisco and lives in Oakland, just across. But I mean, they just barely support the team, and their stadium is like the oldest.
Yeah.
I've been to the stadium in Oakland a couple times. It's trash.
It was terrible.
And now that the Raiders left, and there's not even football there. It's just baseball. It's just ugh. And Kara and Nate was in Norway. They went to Svalbard. Actually,
that's right.
I think.
And we've talked about doing that trip.
Yeah. They wrote that. Momaya, after like 1,000 times while we were in Norway, was like, we need to go to Svalbard. Because I didn't know that. I didn't tell you this. Martin lived in Svalbard.
What?
I had no idea. So we're talking to him, and he tells us that, and he lived there because his dad doing this airplane stuff, and he lived there for like 3 years.
That's crazy.
And then Maya's like 100%, but she would not. He was like a teenager.
Oh.
And his dad worked at the airport.
The Schwartz.
And
May the Schwartz be with you.
So then she's all more into Svalbard because of Martin talking about it. So anyway, okay, we have reached the hour point.
Yes.
And this
also,
is where
Galaxy
we try
Quest is also elite. I have to say that. Sorry.
This is where we try to stop. We try to stop the video because it's like 9 o'clock and literally I had a meeting until 7. I ate quickly and then I did this. It's time to like wind down. Thank you everybody for joining.
Yes.
Thank you, Dad was here. It's good to see you, Dad. And and that's nice. Thank you, Dad. And everybody that joined. Always fantastic to talk to people. And the next time we're going to do this is on June 13th.
Yes.
Tuesday, back to Tuesdays, assuming our schedules don't change again like it did this time. Tuesday, June 13th, and hopefully Maya will be with us.
We'll try to do it.
Yeah, hopefully Maya will be with us, and we'll have. Thank you. Yes, I really like this.
Yes,
I really
this
like
new setup
this,
is awesome. I really like it.
I think these microphones are.
We sound very professional.
Yes. Hello. I'm gonna talk professionally about things. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, I'll go back to Svenbar. I'll be all over the place.
Yes.
And Rush Hour. Oh man.
Oh my God, Rush Hour.
I have a Rush Hour story. It's about to go. I got to tell the Rush Hour story.
Oh my God.
No, don't go anywhere. Rush Hour story real fast. I had the DVD and I let my friend Kathy, you remember Kathy Dawson?
Yes.
I let her borrow the DVD because she wanted to see it. And it was like 6 months later, she goes to give it back to me and she can't find it.
Yeah.
It's not in the DVD case. And she doesn't want to tell me that she lost it. So she buys a new Rush Hour and gives it to me and says, well, she does tell me, she's like, I'm sorry, I lost it.
Yeah.
And then she gives me the new one.
So just gave it you a new one.
And then, I don't know, like 6 months later, I found it. Apparently, I gave her an empty case. I didn't realize it. And so she didn't even know that I gave her an empty case. And then I ended up with 2 copies. I think I gave her the old one, the one she bought back.
Oh, no.
Anyway, and we need to see Chris Tucker in the new Air movie. I want to see that because he's in that. And he also great in Fifth Element. All right. That's where we're going to end.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Have a good night. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.